All right, if you're just joining us, it's Good Morning Anambra, and we want to review the papers this morning. And here with me to look at the papers is Mr. Ejika Bota. He's a journalist and public affairs analyst. Together, we'll look at the papers, the headlines making the papers this morning. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning.
All right, we'll kick off with ABS website. On ABS website, we have Bishop Ezo for Bass Community Policing to tackle insecurity. Ezemo tax federal government on improved power supply to accelerate industrial development. Fake beggars arrested in Oka. Anambra Environment Ministry takes Dobe Anambra campaign to Anocha, Agwata Council areas. Police march robbery syndicate in Oka. Arrest 2 suspects, recover arms. Okay, there are several stories there. We've talked about insecurity over time and several of those stories. I just want us to look at this social issue, fake beggars. It was over the news yesterday and day before yesterday how a begging syndicate have been operating in Oka, and you know several of them, you see the ones we call corporate beggars and all those things. How do we discourage this kind of thing? People will blame poverty. But when a beggar makes 1,500 naira a day, if you calculate it by 30 days, you know it's more than what some civil servants earn. So how do we deal with this kind of issue?
First, I want to commend the Commissioner for Social Welfare, Mrs. Ndidi. She's on top of her game, I must say. This is not the first time she's effecting such arrests. Then back to the question, it's begging is a social menace, and I blame it on those who give out arms to the beggars. Why? You don't encourage people by giving them money.
Okay.
I've come across several of them. And of course, these days, we don't know those who are really in need.
Exactly.
And when people come to me to seek for alms, sometimes they say they need money for transportation, they need money for food. I don't give them the money.
Okay.
I either stop a bus, pay the driver, and that's it, or I buy the food for you. Now, if you give 1,000 naira to a beggar or 500 naira to a beggar, that beggar will always come back tomorrow.
Okay.
Seeking for help or seeking for more money. You understand? But with one of the ways through which you can discourage it is to stop giving the money to these persons, and also to be sure that these persons whom we are giving the money to, those who come with one ailment or the other, of course, most of them, it has just been discovered that they fake it.
Okay.
They find out if they are really passing through what they claim they are passing through. It's the duty of government to provide for its citizens. If they have such ailments and they don't have money to pay the hospital bills, government should cater for them. But those who are fully fit and have decided to take on to begging as a profession, they should be taken off the street. They should be arrested.
They should be arrested because that's a kind of 419.
It is.
Now, in the newsroom yesterday while we were discussing this story, someone told a story of a particular young man who said that this is a health challenge he had and he needed so amounts for surgery, and someone offered to go pay for the surgery in the hospital, and the guy ran away. Not just ran away, he started abusing the person that wanted to help him. Now, we've seen the issue of making this begging a profession. Then you also see, like, the people that were arrested yesterday was actually, will I call it a conglomerate? It is an established company with office, and they have people they employ to use them to beg. So how do we begin to deal with this kind of issues? If we continue to deal with them on an isolated basis, we might not achieve results. How do we ensure that people are discouraged from engaging in that form of crime?
You know, we are dealing with human interest here. A lady comes to you, or a man comes to you, reading a paper that has the name of one orphanage
Or the other.
or the other, and tells you, please support the orphans. Because he or she mentions orphans, you are moved to give out something. The first thing we should do is arrest that person. He or she takes us to the orphanage, whether they exist or not. And you discover that there are persons, as you said, it's a conglomerate. There are people who push them to the street to beg. When they come back, they take theirs and give the beggars a commission. So if we arrest those who go to the field, they will take us to those who sent them. First, we'll find out if such orphanages exist.
Okay.
If it does not exist, then we'll find out who sent them.
Exactly.
Then we'll be able to nip it in the bud.
Okay, we'll be able to nip them on the board. All right, let's also look at this story. Ezemo tax federal government on improved power supply to accelerate industrial development. This present federal government administration have always emphasized on the improvements they want to make in power development, although one of these days the president came out to say that he didn't meet his own expectation in that sector. We continue to hammer on power as one of the or a major panacea for or catalyst for industrial development. In your own view, what do you think should be done at this time? Is there any way to get ourselves out of this conundrum?
We will continue waiting for the Messiah.
Mm-hmm.
I remember the former Minister of Power, Professor Chinedu Nebo, under Jonathan, said the problem of power in Nigeria is spiritual. I remember he said that. And so it's obvious that what we Nigerians are fighting against as regards to power is more that meets the eye. So we'll continue to wait for the Messiah who would take us out of darkness and into the light. Obviously, what we need is somebody who would have the courage and the tenacity to do the right thing. I don't want to believe that we don't have the resources or the money to generate sufficient power for Nigeria as a country. I don't want to believe that.
Okay.
But I think it's a question of a group of persons refusing to do the right thing because of the personal gains that they derive from it. It's obvious. We all know that if Nigerians start to enjoy regular or sufficient power supply, a very minute few would not be happy about it, and they will lose out on some gains that's personal to them. So we need somebody who would be bold enough to fight the cabals wherever they exist and give us what we yearn for. It's very obvious that if we get sufficient power in Nigeria, some of the problems the problems we face, and so we'll be able to tackle them. Power is very, very significant in any economy. So we just need somebody who will be bold enough, from the president to the minister of power, these two persons, if they are bold enough to give Nigerians or to step on the toes of the cabals, then the issue of power will be rested in Nigeria.
All right. Let's look at some national dailies now. National Light newspaper now. On the front page of the National Light, we have Anambra resident doctors call off strike. That's on the front page. Nigeria loses over $3 billion to tax waivers yearly. Ministerial list won't affect 2020 budget. That's coming from Lawan. Tribunal orders INEC to produce articles documents. Oxfam tax NAST on corporate finance regulation. Those are the major stories that we have on the front page of the national light. Then call the tar. N'iru akwụkwọ ka ọ dị taa, gọọmenti Anambra na ndị ọrụ ugbo ga-ejikọ aka maka ịzụ ehi Igbo. Onye ọrịa asụgbuola onwe ya n'ụlọ ọgwụ UBTH, that's University of Benin Teaching Hospital. Ide mmiri achụpụla ihe karịrị mmadụ 2,000 n'ụlọ n'Okpoko. Those are the stories I nwere na iru akwụkwọ National Light and Cordeta. Then, kaina this story, Oxfam tax NAS on corporate finance regulation, National Assembly. How would there have been several laws made by the National Assembly when it comes to finance regulation, and several efforts have been made in that direction. But it seems as if the responsibility always falls on the executive without recourse to the National Assembly. What do you think we should do in our regulation to ensure there are more oversight functions of the lawmaking bodies to ensure that the executive do not go on borrowing spree? Oxfam came, I think, 2 days ago to tell us how much we lose on tax, and then they're telling National Assembly now, look at what you can do. So, in your own view, what do you think we can do to address some of these financial, economic regulations that we have in Nigeria?
I think adequate checks and balances will do the magic. That's why Nigerians wouldn't want a National Assembly that would be a rubber stamp of the executive. It has been said over and over again. Borrowing the amount of debt Nigeria owes today is alarming, and then funny enough, these are debts that will be paid over several decades, and so it falls back on the National Assembly. I think Oxfam met the right set of people.
Okay.
It's the duty of the National Assembly to checkmate the borrowing activities of the executive, and of course, before the executive goes to borrow, it comes to the National Assembly to seek its approval. And National Assembly must not approve every borrowing. It must not approve every borrowing. If the borrowing is if the borrowing is for purpose of building an infrastructure or for investments, maybe they can approve it, but not when they want to borrow to pay an existing debt or to borrow to clear salary arrears. It's not proper at all.
All right. Okay, let's begin to look at some of these national dailies now. On the first paper we have is Daily Times here. On the front page of the Daily Times, Buhari links insecurity to illicit funds, says development stability of African continent undermined by illicit outflows. How illicit financial outflows encourage terrorists, criminals, others. That's coming from the National Intelligence Agency, DG. Malabo, Jonathan promised ENI officials $50 million, report alleges. Nigeria needs 420 billion naira to address humanitarian assistance in Northeast. JTB targets 45 million taxpayers by September 2019. That's coming from Fola. Presidential pool, INEC boss Yakubu fails to appear before tribunal. Minimum wage, TUC rejects federal government circular on implementation. Okay, let's look at the banner headline there on the issue of insecurity and connection to illicit funds. Already we know that this happened and that this kind of things is a challenge African countries face on how we misappropriate or move the money meant for the citizen to other places, and the people that money are meant for continue to live in abject poverty. Now, the problem or the focus should be on addressing this problem. So how do we address the issue of corruption in Africa? In Nigeria in particular, several efforts, several solutions have been hazarded by several pundits and religious leaders and even people in government. But it seems the results we're seeing are not what we're expecting. What can we do?
It has to come from the leaders. And that's why, first of all, in Nigeria as a case study, we must make politics in Nigeria is very, very attractive. Very, very attractive in Nigeria. So that is one of the problems we face. Where a senator or a National Assembly member earns much more than the U.S. president. Whoever is going into politics in Nigeria would want to spend the last dime he has, knowing well that when he gets into power, he'll be able to recoup much more than he spent. So, first of all, we have to make politics in Nigeria not as attractive as it is at the moment. That is one way of stopping corruption. Then, secondly, we need to get a sitting governor or a sitting president or a National Assembly member or one of these top officials in government to be arrested. I remember in the time of Obasanjo, he is not a saint, but I knew in his time, the likes of Alamese was disgraced on corruption issues. The likes of the IG, then Tafa Balogun, and several others. Whether they were disgraced as a result of political fracas between them, but the issue is that it can be done. And we have cases where a sitting governor was caught on camera receiving bribes in dollars, and up to today, nothing has been said or done about it. We are waiting for his immunity to elapse. I know that is where the whole thing will fall back to. But what of those who are not covered by immunity? What has happened to them? What has happened to contractors who are awarded contracts and they don't do anything about the contracts given to them? What happens to doctors who divert drugs meant for public hospitals? What happens to them?
To their own personal clinics.
Yeah, so we need some of these top officials to be arrested. If one or two of them are arrested, genuinely arrested, it will send a signal that truly we are fighting corruption in Nigeria.
All right, it will send a signal. When it comes to fighting corruption, we always focus on police, the executive, and what they can do. But it seems, if you look at the laws of Nigeria, there are provisions for oversight. But it seems the National Assemblies and State Houses of Assemblies that we have, houses of assembly that we have across the 30 states, are not stepping up their responsibility in that aspect. What can we do to better make these lawmakers effective in their responsibility of fighting corruption, in their responsibility oversight, and what have you?
They should be truly independent in every sense of it, especially financially independent, as is the case of the judiciary. A case where the executive has to buy official cars for assembly members. I understand the executive has to sponsor the activities of the assembly members. It's just it's like saying the piper dictates the tune.
Exactly.
So if the National Assembly or State Houses of Assembly are truly independent, if they are financially independent on their own, there will not be a rubber stamp in the hands of the executive. They should be able to. The duty of the National Assembly or the House of Assembly is to make laws and also to checkmate the activities of the executive. But one thing we are good at here in Africa, the House of Assembly is good at, is making laws. But checkmating the activities of the executive is something we are not good at. Of course, it's good for the executive and assembly, National Assembly, to have a harmonious relationship, but not to the detriment of the persons they are serving or representing.
Okay, let's now run to the Daily Sun. On the front page of the Daily Sun, we have boldly there, insecurity, security chiefs, Yoruba leaders to meet. Oni gives insight into talk with president, says we do not want war. North under siege, says Senate to hold another security summit. Africa needs leaders with Mandela spirit, Carlo. Recall notice, Northern elders reply Buhari, we will hold you responsible if herdsmen come to harm. Also beside the nameplate there, Buhari looks us to blame for insecurity in Africa, urging security agencies to trace, block illegal funds. Looking at the Daily Sun this morning, the issue of security, just the different dimensions, what is making the headlines. But even across the papers, this visit by the Ooni of Ife to President Muhammadu Buhari is what is reported across board. Now, let's look at this issue of insecurity. You see the kind of discordant tunes coming from the southwest. It's been very strong in the past week. After the gruesome murder of Fasorati's daughter, we also saw the kidnap that has happened in the southwest over time between Ile-Ife Road, Osun State, and Ibadan-Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, and Ore. These things are beginning to raise issues of national security. For a first-class traditional ruler from the southwest to be making statements tending to whether we want war or we do not want war, will tell you the level we've got to. What can be done at this point? The headline on Daily Sun is saying that security chiefs, Yoruba leaders will meet to address some of these things. Yes, what should be their first agenda when this kind of things happen? When they finally meet, what should be the first agenda to address so that we don't get into a state of anarchy in this country again?
Well, they are speaking up now because one of theirs has been affected. And this is a cry that several of us have been saying over time. But it seems nobody paid ears to what was being said. But now that one of them has been affected, of course, I do not think the lady who was murdered is the first to be murdered, but because of her status, then Yoruba leaders are speaking up now. Well, no time is late. The head of the Yoruba race, as of today in Nigeria, is the Ooni himself. And he has said that they do not want war. What I think he is saying is telling Mr. President President to be up and doing so that Yorubas will not take laws into their hands. Of course, we know that as Nigeria is today, we owe ourselves the responsibility as individuals to protect ourselves. Even though we have, it's the duty of the police and other security agencies to protect us. But you have to protect yourself first before waiting for the security agencies to come. So, what I think they should do is, of course, there's every need for them to hold a security summit as has been mooted. Then, there is a need for adequate checkmating or adequate security on our highways. I think one of someone once said that is not the main solution, but we can start from there, checkmating our highways, because this is where the hoodlums operate from. And on the highway, there are no houses for you to run into, except the only grace which we used to have back then is the toll gates, which no longer exist. But if we have checkpoints, not when I say I mean checkpoints where security officials will do their job and not to go and harass commuters. If we have them, then it will be a kind of relief for travelers along the highway.
All right. We'll look at other papers now, but basically most of the papers we have here are reporting on this visit of the ONE to President Muhammad Buhari. Let's just look at the Punch newspaper and another one. Then I will ask another question that has been coming. Featured bad eggs among Fulani. ONE tells Buhari leaders shouldn't keep quiet on insecurity. Car fires Pinnick, Mikel Igalo exit Super Eagles. Atiku gets 55 cartons of documents, closes case. Stock market extends decline. Investors lose 708 billion naira. Abiodun seeks Assembly's nod to stop Abiola Tech University. Those are the major stories that we have right there on the Punch newspaper. Let's look at the Nation now. On the front page of the Nation, ONE, after visit to Buhari, Southwest wants no war. Southwest wants no war. And then we also have on that page, TUC rejects government circular on new pay. Abductors of CSCS mom demand 70 million naira. $60 billion yearly outflow undermines Africa's instability. That's coming from the NIADG. NMPC to supply 10% of India's crude oil. Those are the stories that we have on the front page of the Nation. And then on the Guardian newspaper, we have ONE meets Buhari warns of war over security crisis. Yakubu Shon's tribunals INEC tenders documents. Those are the stories that we have on the papers this morning. They're still on the issue of security. Over time when the president came into power, the question of whether the federal government was shielding the Fulani herdsmen that were, on quote, involved in gruesome massacres of farmers across the country was top of the discussion. And now we're seeing these things happen now. The Northern Elders Forum just last week asked their people to come back. The Southwest leaders are beginning to raise security concerns over regional and tribal sentiments. The Southeast have been raising this over time. How do we address this? Have we gotten to that level where coming back would be very difficult? Can we still restore trust across tribal lines in this country?
It's a pity that the situation was not well managed from the onset. That's why we find ourselves where we are at the moment. You recall that initially the federal government said those who are maiming farmers are not Nigerians, and they came in from Niger and Chad and Mali and other border countries. And recently again, the same federal government is saying these cattle rearers needs to be given a settlement. And you begin to wonder, why would you give a settlement to foreigners who are maiming maiming your citizens? So it's rather unfortunate. I was surprised by the by the call by of Northerners calling their members in the south to return home. The authenticity of the person who made the call is still in question, because I'm not sure it came from Arewa.
Yeah.
Then the Easterners have always made that call before now. It seems everybody now wants a total breakaway from the existing country called Nigeria. These agitations are not for nothing. There's a need for us to come together and ask ourselves what really is the problem. The case of the Fulanis, it's clear. They want their cattle to graze. But on the other hand, before today, Fulanis have existed in the midst of Southerners. We've had cattle rearing in the south before now without any issue. So the question now is, why would the Fulanis or the crop of Fulanis we have today take their cattle into farmlands to graze? So we need to come together and ask ourselves the question of what really is the problem. And if we are coming to the table, we must come with a clear mind and a clear conscience of wanting to really find out what the problem is.
Okay, wanting to really find out what the problem is and thereby addressing some of those challenges. That's how far we'll run on reviewing the press on Good Morning Anambra this morning. Thank you for joining us. Mr. Ejika Bata, public affairs analyst and journalist, joined us this morning to look at the papers.